more reflections on right effort, right energy, right orientation, right direction. Yeah, and it's just so central to our practice. Understanding what that means, and not just the words. Obviously, that we love that Zen expression. The words are just fingers pointing to the moon of direct experience. Do you know? So the words are helpful, but then it's a question of locating the meaning of those words in our meditation practice. Yeah, and right energy, right effort is one of those. What is that? What is that right amount? It is not, as Goldilocks said with the three bears. With the oatmeal, not too hot and not too cold, but just right. There's a researcher back in the 40s, I think, 50s, Hans Selye, who did interesting research. He wanted to find out how much energy anxiety was optimal for test taking. Yeah. And I won't go into how they developed that study, but it interviewed a lot of people before and after, et cetera, and took a look at their test scores, et cetera, et cetera. And he came up with this idea of, I guess he talked to Mr. Likert, who developed the Likert scale. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Likert scale, but the Likert scale is a subjective measure, where you ask someone from a 1 to 10. For example, if we were dealing with depression, you can do it with a number of things. When it comes to depression, on a 1 to 10 scale, what number are you right now? 1 being the most depressed you've ever been in your life, and 10 being the absolute absence of any depression, just joyous, buoyant, euphoric, the most happy. What number would it be? And the sense is, and they've done some research on the Likert scale, is that we're pretty good at knowing right away. We don't even have to think about it so much. It's like, well, I remember that time, and I remember that time. No, 3, it will come to mind. Yeah, and similarly with anxiety, we could do that with fear. We could do that with doubt. We could do that with et cetera, et cetera. But with anxiety, the same thing. I mean, if you check in right now, what level of anxiety are you experiencing? Yeah, 1 being the least you've ever experienced, and 10 being the most. A number will pop into your head. So he did this with test taking, the amount of anxiety or energy needed for test taking, and this is what he found, and we're going to make a connection with this in a minute in terms of right energy for meditation. He found that the ideal amount of energy or anxiety was not none at all. Sometimes people will think, I need to get rid of all of my anxiety, all of that kind of up energy. No. What he found is that when people were in a range of 1 to 3 on a scale of 1 to 10, they were a little too casual, a little too complacent, a little bit too whatever about the test, which wasn't optimal. But you can guess, when it was at the other end of the scale, when it was somewhere between like 7 and 10, there was too much anxiety, too much thought blocking. Anyone ever been here? Too much thought blocking, too much second guessing. Yeah, which, too much erasing. No, I think that's not it. Okay, let me move on to the next one. I don't have enough time, etc. That whole also impeded, optimal test taking. And the sweet spot was between 4 and 6. Because we do need some energy. We do need even a little bit of butterfly, a little bit, okay, to focus, to do anything. We need some energy. 4 to 6, was the range. And similarly, okay, so how does this connect with meditation? Well, how much energy do we need for, let's say, an optimal kind of mindfulness? It's not none. It's not none. Just, oh no, just let it all go. We'll just float just float. Easy does it. Not quite. Not quite. Nor is it like, well, speaking for myself, because I spent a lot of time meditating in 7 to 10. Not as it, no, I'm going to get this right. I'm going to push. I don't want to, no wandering, no wavering. Don't move. That's maybe not so optimal either, But the sweet spot, and this is what, when we speak with you, and we spent a lot of time speaking about the inner holding environment, we are talking about, and when we talk about right effort, we're talking about 4 to 6. We're talking about 4 to 6. Yeah. How much energy? 4 to 6. That's how much. You see, and I kind of the numbers guy, so I kind of like that. This helped me. This helped me so much to get in touch with this, because the truth is, and I get this about the Likert scale. I know. I can tell you right away what my number is in just a second. I know where it is. Therefore, when I'm in meditation, it's not like I have to give myself a whole big rap about it, about where I am. It's more like, well, where is it? What is it? Am I in the 4 to 6? And well, first of all, here's the finger pointing at the moon. What we want you to do for yourself, and maybe hopefully you have touched into this space, to know what that 4 to 6 feels like when you're in it. Where, yeah, there's a sense of, we will talk about caring attention, engaged attention, interested attention. Again, not just in meditation, but in life. The places where I've been most lit up and most engaged, is it somewhere in the 4 to 6? When I'm speaking to someone, the conversation goes better if I'm in 4 to 6. If I'm in 1 to 3, I'm drifting. I'm already thinking about something else. If I'm in 7 to 10, I already know what I want to say. Oh yeah, I can relate to that too. Right. So this metaphor of 4 to 6 energetically, I'll invite you to check in a number of spaces, in your in life. Yeah. See if it's so. But also in meditation. What is 4 to 6? Part 1 is, what is 4 to 6? We'll talk about alert and relaxed. Not too tense. Too tense, we get more, the restlessness comes to visit, the agitation, right? Too little, the driftiness starts to come to visit. The drifting, oh yeah, it's all so good in here, and I'm lost in a fantasy. Might be a pleasant fantasy, but the mindfulness has fallen off the rail there. I'm not actually able to hold it, to be present to it. Yeah. So feeling into what is that 4 to 6 space, knowing when it's there. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm in that zone. Yeah, it's cool to have a little bit of self-monitoring in this way, in terms of what that is, because that's where the most optimal, productive kind of meditation will happen, when we're in 4 to 6. This has been my experience. That also means knowing when you're in 1 to 3 and knowing when you're in 7 to 10. It also means, and this is part of the art too. Oh, I'm in 1 to 3. Okay. I know I'm naming that. I can even feel that there's a kind of, usually a certain kind of heaviness or just a driftiness there. I know that I want to hang out in 4 to 6 a little bit more if I can, regardless of the content of what's going on, the energetic level. See the difference? So how would I raise my energy up a little bit more into 4 to 6? How would I do that? Maybe it's a couple deep breaths. Maybe it's moving a little bit more. Maybe it's opening the eyes for a moment. Maybe it's inviting a memory briefly that has a little bit more pizzazz to it. Yeah. And also, if I find myself in 7 to 10, how can I practice downshifting a little bit? It's hard for us, the coming down. And once we get revved up, it's a challenge for us. But how can I do that? Kind of, again, sometimes deep breaths can soften, smooth out the energy a little bit too. Or can I recall a memory of myself sitting in the steam room in the health club, or and be surrounded by warm water? How do I bring it down into 4 to 6? So I offer this to you for your reflection. It's something that I use a lot in my practice. It's a very quick kind of self-monitoring assessment. It can be really helpful in locating right energy, right effort, and energetically where we'd like to be in our practice. Okay.